Hi, Dave. It's great to put a face with a name, the fellow
Likewise.
legal eagle. Excellent. So I know that we exchanged some emails about some of the legal implications of all of this. And where would you like to start? I know we talked about rights and terms of use and IP, downstream royalties, securities issues.
Any one of them. The NFT space is so diverse and so broad that the areas of the law that it touches are far greater than anybody I think currently conceives of. At least that's been my experience when new clients in the space have come to me to help them sort of think through the potential outcomes of their projects. So, I mean, we've touched on things from at my firm, from like AML KYC concerns to trademark violations and what happens if and copyright if something is put immutably on a chain, to sort of fraud concerns when there's a platform that doesn't actually link their underlying data securely to an NFT. So I'm game for wherever you want to start. Where should we begin?
Well, let's start what you just ended on, because one of the most persistent misconceptions when people are asking me about the various intellectual property issues, or the own, not even just IP, but more broadly, what someone owns when they purchase an NFT. So unpacking and kind of disaggregating the difference between the non-fungible token as certainly the representation of ownership, your ability to exercise control over it, to create it in the first place, but actually really just pointing to some other underlying asset. In most cases, it's going to be some type of digital property, but as we heard with the last panel, it could certainly also be access to some experience, right? Or access to something either in digital or physical, access to some type of physical property as well, particularly when we're talking about collectibles. So let's just talk about separating the NFT from the underlying property, because I see that come up a lot. How have you addressed that with your clients?
Depends on the client. So we have one client that I think is taking a novel approach and is making this less of an issue in that they are using the NFT to link to the Arweave blockchain. So all of the data is on chain. So you don't really have the same concern as you might at Nifty Gateway or OpenSea or Rarible, or even an NBA Top Shots, where at the end of the day, I mean, if you have a trademark infringing NFT at Rarible or OpenSea, they will not let you see the underlying image because they've complied with a takedown notice. And then I think that a lot of people don't understand that, both on the minting side and the purchasing side. And so I think we're going to see, and considering the dollar values that are at stake here in some cases, there's going to be some serious litigation over this. As far as the specific rights that are granted vis-a-vis actual old-fashioned intellectual property rights, I see that vary from platform to platform. A lot of platforms will talk about an irrevocable license. Other platforms are allowing for straight up, complete sale. And whether or not a purchaser actually takes the steps that would need to be taken at the Copyright Office is, I don't think anybody's doing that. As I haven't seen it.
Say that. Undeniable truth and reality. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's always problematic, where when I think about, a few years back, 2019, when the Supreme Court says that in order to even exercise your right to protect or to sue for infringement, the underlying asset, if it is subject to copyright, has to be registered first. So assuming you've done everything else right, if you've not also taken that additional step, again, to the extent we're talking about something that is literary or artistic work fixed in a tangible medium, as we say, right? So the right to copy and to prepare derivative works, a lot of what we're talking about with these collectibles take on additional forms, not just the original part, certainly publicly displaying or publicly performing if it's capable of being performed. All those things, you can't even protect your interests if you don't first register. And I think that is something, unfortunately, we see far too often in all of the valuable reasons and remedies that come with registration. So that's certainly a consideration, regardless of whether you're a major corporation with an IP intensive industry. Certainly we see on the NBA Top Shot side. But if you're an individual athlete or someone else, it's the same rules.
Yeah. And the other thing I think is people maybe not considering what the underlying rights would be. So musicians are good examples of this, where they have very, very specific types of rights that, quite frankly, I mean, they probably implicate sync rights and mechanical rights, NFTs. I mean, but obviously this is a matter of first impression. So I think there's going to be a sort of a reflexive land grab by the music industry to kind of assert, hey, we have control over this because it's another revenue stream, and they certainly don't want to be late to the party like they were with streaming. So I think there will be some sort of reflexive overreach, but ultimately it'll probably be mechanical rights or sync rights. But the point is, artists, whenever we talk to them, we're making sure that they check with their label first, or make sure that they have the rights to the actual ability to make this NFT, which not everybody's doing that for sure.
Absolutely. The point is really well made. You made me think of something that's going on. I think it's with DC Comics, doing precisely what you're saying. It's like, hey, you independent contractors whom we, said you could do limited things with your prints, not so fast, because we didn't anticipate this type of technology. So that's certainly another thing that we need to be aware of. What new uses and novel uses of technology are now causing corporations and individuals to go back and look at those original natural language contracts, if we're comparing it like to smart contract codes, to see what the implications are and how far those rights. We are absolutely going to see a lot of litigation that comes from this. It may not go all the way to the end, but it's the start of a great conversation.
Yeah.
Like to see that.
Yeah. And to follow that up, we are telling musicians in particular, like, utilize this moment in time to your advantage. Position yourself as the gateway for your label to get into this space, and in exchange, get a better record contract and have better rights for this, at least for this specific distribution method, because that's going to be a very narrow window, I think, because people are adopting quickly. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like NFTs, up until NFTs, the fastest adopted part of crypto was DeFi. Over DeFi summer, it blew up, but NFTs have left it in the dust. I mean, it's ballooned. All of my non-crypto clients and friends have been asking me about it. That's how I know that it's big.
Yeah, well, anything that hits SNL, it's legit, right?
Yeah. You know how many people sent me that video? Like, I must have gotten it sent to me 100 times. And it was great. I thought it was hilarious, but it was like, yeah, I saw it.
Right, you saw it the first 99 times.
Yeah.
I know we were also focused on, and this isn't exactly my lane, but I've had to pay attention to the idea of, it's one thing, well, let me start here. For those who aren't aware, I think everybody's aware, but just to be sure, that from the IRS's perspective, that generally speaking, crypto assets are taxed as property. And not much changes in the NFT space, except, there'll be certain things. Maybe you are working and someone pays you in an NFT, right? That would be income instead of a capital gains. But there's also this conversation separate and apart from the taxation issue of the concerns around fractionalized NFT issues and how that might be security. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a question. I think it's absolutely a security. You take whether it's, a dividend from a stock, or the rights to a song, or the value of a collected group of pieces of art, that is a security. You are investing money in a common enterprise where the profits are to be derived from the efforts of others. It's a classic Howey test. The NFTs project and a couple of the other projects where they are wrapping this stuff up, I am not seeing enough consideration given to the securities law, not enough attention paying to the securities law considerations. Then you have things like Flamingo DAO, where they're limiting it to 99 participants. They're all accredited. That's so they don't run afoul of the investment company of 1940 concerns, so they don't get deemed to be an inadvertent investment company, which has serious consequences. But yeah, they're one of the few groups that is taking it seriously, and I do think that the SEC is clearly onto this. FATF is onto this. They changed the definition of virtual assets so that it includes NFTs. So regulators are well aware of what's happening, and I think, given the length of time it takes for these things to actually be brought, I think we're going to see a lot of pain in this market in 2, 3, 4 years from now.
Right, because we oftentimes see regulators on the sidelines to find that sweet spot between making sure that investors and consumers are protected, but giving enough space for innovation. But that they come off of the sidelines immediately when there's major, activity in a particular space and people getting hurt. And I can imagine when you think of like the super rare, Nifty Gateway, some of the others that allow for fractionalized, well, not fractionalized per se, but downstream revenue participation. You want to make sure that you stay in revenue, but don't get outside of that to speculation. It's a fine line, and looking at all these terms of service, I don't think there's enough attention paid to that particular issue.
Yeah, agree 100%. I will say that you briefly touched on it. The other thing that I don't think people are thinking about is that there are only 5 states that don't have sales tax on digital assets, and most people don't live in those states. So I think that we're going to see a lot of sales tax enforcement actions. That maybe that's a little farther off, unless you're on one of the major platforms, but that you have digital art that's selling for millions of dollars. We actually had a client talk to us about potentially locating in a free port to sort of to put their servers in a free port, which was an interesting idea to sort of sidestep this. And I think that something will be done along those lines, because where does the transaction happen in a digital world? You got to go to the Nexus rules, and I think the free port idea is a good one. But so I just wanted to throw that little taxation thing in there. I'm not a tax attorney, but that is something that we're taking into account.
I love it. But hey, guys, I wrote a couple of things down from your discussion, and let me know where you stand. One, you mentioned the Saturday Night Live. I think everybody's seen it. It's been passed around. I thought it was great. I thought they could have improved the musical choice had they gone with Naughty by Nature. Like, you down with NFT? Yeah, you know me. And I think that's the only way it could have been better. I love, by the way, your no sales tax. Like, that is an interesting. That's the kind of thing I wouldn't think of, and I bet 100 people on this webinar have not thought of either. That's a wonderful point. And you did say we're going to see a lot of pain, which gives me a good segue to teasing what's coming up later. We're going to close this entire event with Francis Ngannou, the UFC heavyweight champ. So I want to make sure everybody sticks around for Francis and Markel Martin from CAA, because he bet on himself and an NFT and he won. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go from there. Tonya, Dave, thank you so much for the incredibly fascinating discussion.